RELaunch Live Podcast. RELaunch Live Podcast. Talking all things real estate, the strategies that build it, and sharing their own life-changing growth plans. They are two of the most dynamic people in the business with one common goal: to make you rethink, reimagine, and be re-inspired in your life and business. Welcome to the RELaunch Live Podcast with your hosts, Veronica Figueroa and Jeff Lobb.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Another episode here.
Yes, welcome
back.
RELaunch Live Podcast. I'm sorry, Jeff. It is my favorite thing to do lately, right? Where we get to rethink, reimagine, and be re-inspired by so many amazing leaders. And today is no different. We have an amazing couple joining us today that I get to call friends, partners, and I honestly call them mentors as well. As you get to know them, you'll probably understand why they're loved by so many, Jeff. So they're dear friends of mine. And I think it was really cool when Rebecca said to you that she feels like she already knew you and knows you. And I think the feeling's mutual, right? I think you felt like you may know a little bit about her.
Yeah, plus I'm a little bit of a stalker too sometimes too. I like to check out the digs and what they're doing. Oh, look who rolls in.
So what's really cool is we have Rebecca Soto and Josue Soto. They are amazing friends of mine. They are authors, they are team leaders, they are growth global leaders, just philanthropists at heart. Welcome, Rebecca Soto and Josh Josue, aka Joe Soto.
Josh, Joe, Josue.
Yes,
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys so much.
I feel like I just left you guys. I was in Orlando yesterday and I just flew back like yesterday. So I was down there at a big event.
Wow.
Just missed each other.
Yeah. So, what's really cool about Josue and Rebecca, they've actually been a part of RELaunch Live since its inception, right? Since we did our first event, they were guests there, so they understood what it meant, and they saw it evolve in bigger conferences, and they actually went with us on some of the tours. We've done RELaunch Milwaukee together. We did RELaunch Houston, of course, Orlando. They were a big part of that, and it's just an honor to have them here because they've been a part of this world and they understand what it means to the core of bringing just great people together and just inspiring each other to be better. And during the pandemic, one of the things that I think is really inspiring about them, Jeff, is they wrote a book. And if you're watching this, some of you guys are listening, but some of you are actually watching the video, and we keep it very light, very authentic, very raw. You'll see a poster behind Josh that says Married in Real Estate, and that's the book cover. And one thing is a lot of us were just trying to get through the pandemic, the mindset, not knowing what was going to happen in real estate, right? And we never knew that we were going to, we were about to enter what is probably one of the hottest markets in the world, right? Fear kicked in, uncertainty was there. These two got to work. They actually wrote a book during the pandemic on being married in real estate, the journey of being a husband and wife couple in real estate. And they are way more than that, right? But it's really inspiring to know that during crisis, people can either panic or people can lead and people can take action. And that's what they did. They used this time. And now they are going around inspiring other couples around the country and now globally as they've entered other countries. To just show people what it's like to work together, how you can pray together, how you can build together and show up as a unity while still being different, have your different strengths. So Jeff, I can go on and on about how amazing they are. But I wanted to just make sure everybody knew how special they are and what they've done. And they've done so much more.
I should have read that book like a long time ago because I'm in the same boat as you two. I've had my spouse in the business for years. I met her in the real estate business. So, I'm sure there's some really core stories we could tell.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that as we are on RELaunch Live, we want to talk about things that are real, right? And can we agree? It's not easy working with your spouse. And it's not something people like to brag about or boast about because we want to look a certain way on social media. We want to look like we're put together, but and all three of us have worked with our spouse in the business for many, many, many years. And you know that it kind of like it takes over your life in when you're in real estate together. And people say, shut it off at a specific time. And you're like, I know we're supposed to be on date night, but I got to ask you this. Or did you remember to do this? And then you're like, like it can truly infiltrate your life. And it's a topic that I'm passionate about because it can cause friction in your quality of life and how you vacation, or vacations really turn into workations. Rebecca Josue, guide us through this, please. Give us the inspiration behind the book. And then Jeff and I will just dive in asking way more questions.
Yeah, I'm
my
locked and loaded.
That's a great question, Vettel, actually.
And thanks for the intro. I mean, it's so interesting hearing that perspective from other people about us. It's still a little surreal. So thank you. Thank you for that. Writing the book is something that honestly we hadn't even thought about. And sometimes it takes somebody who believes more in you or sees something in you. And then we sat back and the suggestion was made. And I said, you know what, you're right. We should write a book, right? We were celebrating 20 years of marriage at the time, and the pandemic hit, and it kind of like derailed all of us, right? It kind of disturbed what we were all doing. And we were supposed to take a nice destination trip to, I think we were planning either Hawaii or where did you want to go? Bali. And none of that happened. None of that happened. And so instead we were like, you know what? Let's just write about this. We have a lot to share. And the book is written in his and her perspective. So you'll get a little bit from me, and then you get a little bit from him. And we've got some life lessons and exercises to kind of help couples reflect on their own life, their own situation, how they're handling things, what motivates them, right? And it's been a journey of growth. But before I keep going on, I'll just kind of let Joe jump in. Well, if not, I take over.
No, it's just wow. I mean, it was pretty amazing just to see how, we each one of us wrote our own separate really vision to each chapter. But it all came together at the end. So it was pretty inspiring to see how, when she wrote it out in a certain way. I wrote it out in a different way.
Well, we were separate, right?
But
so we
were
didn't
very
know what
separate.
we were writing.
We really didn't know what we were writing. That's another thing that Rebecca forgot to say. We really didn't know. She didn't know what I wrote. I didn't know what she wrote. It was to the end when we got the final edit copies. We were like, whoa, this is pretty crazy. It was kind of shocking to both of us when we seen all this. But honestly, it was just to me, obviously, I was trying to see things in different perspectives. Vettel and Jeff, I see it as when one door closes, the other one. There's so many opportunities that open, and I tell you, this was our biggest opportunity here. I think that we really learned a lot from each other. That's the most important thing. That you don't really, those are some of the topics that we were really thrown at us. We really didn't. These are things that we weren't prepared to write about. But then you learn so much of your partner and your business partner, because that's who we are, that, man, you just start learning more about each other that you really didn't know. It can be a small little thing. It can be a big thing, but it's a great thing to really understand that there's unity here. There's love here. When you have that, everything is just falls into place, man. You gotta lead with your heart. You gotta have God first before anything. That's what we're believers, and that's how it is.
Yeah. I mean, I love the perspective of you both wrote independently. That's like a whole new concept I never thought of. Like, you didn't sit around and like collaborate on this. Like, you wrote yours, and I got to imagine the awareness of both perspectives of each of you had to be. That's really not a bad exercise for any like husband and wife to do about things. Like, you write yours, you write mine, and let's really see how each other feel about it or think about it. It's a really great perspective. Never thought of it that way. That's one of my nuggets right there.
So I feel like I get lucky because I get to know a little bit about kind of like you guys, because we work so closely. We've been friends for now, I want to say 5-6 years, and really spent time together. It's really interesting to watch, Jeff, you hear the concept and it's being thrown out. Sorry, car passing. Been throwing out a lot, like the visionary and the integrator, rocket fuel. And it's funny because we do culture index, and I culture index everyone. Jeff, I don't know if I've culture indexed you, but I need to.
Send them a survey.
Yeah. Like, it's really interesting. Josh is a visionary, right? Josh is Mr. Optimistic, ultimate, like it can be done. everybody, sees good in everything. Rebecca's obviously a heart of gold. She's got the patience of an angel. She's an angel, but she is an executor. She's like, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. Like, I've never seen someone just get it done as much as I have in her. Like, just, again, like, I've got a deadline. We're going to do this. Nothing gets in the way. No excuses. And it's really cool to watch a visionary integrator and a husband and wife, because not everybody has that. Mm-hmm. And for example, Tony and I are visionary integrator. He's an integrator more than I am. But because of where his risk factors come in his just natural state of mind, he's gonna think about things a lot longer than I am. Where I am more let's do this. We're going to build this plane while we're flying it. I drive people crazy because I have 101 ideas at a time. But it's beautiful to watch a visionary integrator couple, work together, have the same vision, and work so well together. They have not only wrote a book, but they did, they really built a really impressive reputation across a very important organization that is changing and helping the real estate industry, which is NAREP, National Association of Real Estate Advisors, Professionals. And Josh, I can't go without congratulating you. You did the invocation at the national conference. It's just this week, right? And I don't care what political party you support. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, independent, liberal, conservative. It doesn't matter. To have the opportunity to have a voice for Washington and to have a voice for homeownership and sustainable housing is important. You guys committed to this, and I'm going to go back to the visionary integrator in a second. And I got to use the word committed, because you guys committed to this organization about 7 years ago. Since then, you've moved up. You were a national president. A president. Rebecca, you also were president. You guys ended up winning Chapter of the Year, having one of the most successful chapters in the history of the organization. And then working your way up into being a coach. Rebecca, you were part of government affairs. Josh, you were just able to do the invocation. I got chills just thinking about it. So let's talk a little bit about being a visionary, an integrator, commitment, but talk us real quick before that experience of what it was like to do the invocation in DC, knowing that this organization is representing homeownership in sustainable housing for the Latino Hispanic community, and you using your voice and actually taking action to see the change that we need in our industry. Yeah.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Vero. I know that we have your full support. We love you. We love everyone. But to me, it was crazy. We were at breakfast in Cabo Thursday. I get a call from our CEO, Gary, and say, hey, I know I couldn't hardly hear him, but he said something about, I need you to do the invocation. What do you think? And I said, I'm all in. Just that's all I said. And then he was like, okay, I'll see you next week.
You don't think about the details. That's why
I'll figure it out.
Right?
I remember him and I were backstage, and I say, hey, Gary, I need to tell you something. He was like, what's that? He goes, I never heard anything that you said. And he goes, I thought so, because all you said was, yeah, I'll do it. That's it. That's all I heard from you. But it was actually, I was ready to go. It was something that it was something that I think that what's most important, Vero and Jeff, is that when you speak from your heart and you understand the importance of what this organization was, the foundation of what this organization was built on. That's the most important thing. These two men embarked on an organization to really to understand and come aligned and really
to help the Latino
help the Latino community. And what I mean by that is, their vision was always sustainable Hispanic homeownership. That was the foundation of it, but also to create leaders within our community. When you look at it, for instance, Mike Valdez, this came up in one of our national board meetings. You guys are aware that Mike Valdez is the only Latino, I'm gonna repeat myself, the only Latino in the world right now as a CEO of a major real estate company.
Wow.
That's a big deal, guys. This is huge.
And I'm going to just correct that, because he's the president of the publicly global estate company, global president. Just in case anybody's going to fact check us, okay? I know is the CEO of EXP, but he is the only president of a real estate publicly traded company, and Josh just wanted to you never know, we got those fact checkers every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. But it was so impressive to hear that, and how important it is for us to get in these rooms. We got to get into these C-suites rooms. We got to get into the SBF 500 rooms. I mean, Vettel, we love you because I know how you are. This is dear heart. This has been something that's been touching you for a long time, and I know that how much you want every one of us to be in those rooms, and it's important for us to be part of something like this. Why? Because we have a voice, man. For many years, we're a very passive culture. We just ride with what we want. We just accept it for what it is.
But because also for many of us, we don't come from wealth. So
Right.
we were lagging behind. And so he created this organization to help us get ahead. And by helping the real estate community, it would then branch out and be able to help local communities as well, buyers and sellers and future homeowners. And then I look at it and I think of how it's raised the bar. And let's take a look real quick here at Ms. Veronica, who's #1 in teams, units sold in eXp Realty in the world. And then we have, Daniel Beer, who is also, highest in GCI. That's a big deal too. I don't know if that record has ever been done before, but 2 Latino agents who are making impact in the world. And we're thankful for you guys for being those pioneers, those trailblazers that are opening and paving the way for the rest of us.
And there's so much more, especially when it comes to affordable housing right now. I mean, we're trying to kind of figure this out now. There's so many narratives that we're working through, so many perspectives that we're working through. And I mean, this conversation can go on when it comes to that, but we'll talk about that off camera later. But it was important, man. It was something, and when you think about it, it's been 22 years since this organization. So we just celebrated 22 years, Vettel. And just to think about 22 years ago, these two men had a vision. They knew we had to do this. They knew, and that right there really, I felt at peace. I tell you this, I was the last one to speak in the green room in the back. And at one point, I heard a couple of the one of the senators and one of the commissioners from California speak. And at that moment, I felt this peace because I knew that we're well protected. We're good. We're going in the right direction. And, when I went up on stage and I gave, I presented my invocation, and I just felt that the presence of God with me.
I'm just, thank you for that, by the way. I think I teared up a little bit, and I probably will a couple. If you know me well, I have no problem crying. I don't even care if we're in a professional platform now. At this point, you're going to get vulnerable, Veronica.
We're being real.
It is something to know that it felt a little lonely at some of those tables where you're like, I'm here because I want to see more of my people at the table, because we are a part of change. And I sat for a while in some tables by myself, but not long. And it's just so awesome to see you guys, leading the way, and for others and us now really being able to, and this isn't about if you want to represent something, go out and be the voice, be the change, get involved. Whether it's RPAC, NAREB, ARIA, it doesn't matter.
WCR, yeah.
We want people. That's the point of, if you could take anything away from this one today, is you got to get involved. You got to get committed, and you got to just put in the work for the right reasons. It's not about ego. It's not about, you being the only one there. It's about building a bigger table for other people to sit at with you, because their voice matters. And I know that if you do it for the right reasons, and I'm like having hot flashes right now, and because I'm pumped about this. I'm emotional about it, because it is the power of people who can make the difference. And you have no idea how much you've inspired me to get involved. And I had a lot of ego. And I remember the first time we sat down and you're like, hey, NAREP. And I'm like, man, I'm above that. And I had no idea when and again, this is when the first time we talked 8-9 years ago. I'm too busy. I'm too busy, right, for that.
Right.
You guys kept on saying, we need you. We not you needed me, we need leaders like you to, get involved. And I was like, And at first I put my toe in it. I wasn't committed. And it wasn't until I committed that I was like, Jeff, I have to tell you, I fell in love with this organization. Yeah. I fell in love with the
They're great. I've come across them quite a bit.
I mean, and like when you realize that they're like trying to change generational wealth, generational gaps, like sustainable housing, like finding ways, getting into DC, making change, policy for sustainable housing. And you start hearing these stories of people who migrated to this country and like were really able to build a legacy for their family. This is bigger than you. You are not bigger than anything. Like we we play a small role. And it was these two people who really opened my eyes to really start seeing like there's a heart-centered leadership here that is bigger than anybody here.
I want to take it back to when we first started, because we were really just a husband and wife team. We were doing pretty good as a team. And I remember, I know a good friend of ours saying, you know, you guys are top producers, but nobody knows who you are. And I thought, ouch, okay, sorry. She goes, you got to get involved. You got to go out to events. You got to do things. And, you know, early in our career, you know, my kids were really small. So we were really just about, let's just knock it out, work with our buyers and sellers, and then we get back home. My main priority was to be involved with our family, with our kids, and, you know, being available Saturday mornings for basketball, soccer, ballet, whatever it is, gymnastics. They were all in everything, and we were always with them, supporting them in that. We sat in those bleachers. We didn't leave. We wanted to be an integral part of everything. I was the mom that was volunteering for all of any activity, any chaperone opportunities. I was there, you know, and I just wanted to be there. And but moving forward, we were unknown. We were unknown. And I said, you know what? I guess we do have to get out there. We got to put ourselves out there. And as we learned about NARP and started to get involved, I remember in the beginning, I told Josh, I'll support you. I've heard that this is going to make our business suffer. So I'm going to make sure that I'll take care of the business while you're doing, you know, whatever it is that happens over there. But when we went to our first national event, and I looked around and I realized we were in Washington, D.C. He was there for just the Leadership Academy. And I'm just thinking training, okay. But I look around and it's full of Latino agents all there. And I'm like, what are we here for? And they're like, yeah, we advocate for policies that affect, you know, home ownership and things like that. And I thought, I need to be part of this, you know. And then the other part that I didn't expect was the warm family environment that it was. And so, you know, as I began to get involved, I honestly, at the time, I didn't feel that I had a specific skill that would really help in the chapter. But the truth is, I just plugged in wherever anything that was needed. How can I help? Right. So a lot of people are like, well, what am I going to get out of being in that organization? And my mindset was different. I was like, how can I help you? Right. What can I do to serve? And that, I think, is really the heart of it, is when you come with a heart to serve, that's where things are going to happen. I didn't come expecting anything in return. I came to make an impact, however which way, with whatever skill I had, right? Even if it wasn't, I didn't have to be the most polished marketer, the most polished whatever. I was going to do what I could, right? With the best of my abilities. And as I was giving, I started to feel that I was being blessed in return. I was learning from other people. I was exposed to other people who are working at a higher level and more of them. And so in the beginning, all this talk about surround yourself with, you know, successful, but none of that was part of my language. It wasn't part of my world. I went learning that as I immersed myself in that. And I think that's a part where a lot of people might be failing because they don't want to take the risk of throwing themselves out there. They're like, I'm going to lose time. That's not what I want. And, that's
a hot button for me. Let me interject a second, because what you really took your model that made you successful as real estate agents and you duplicated it on a national level. And I know you talked about, because I was in that same mode of kids, and I'm still kind of in that same mode, but when you get yourself involved, you threw yourself at everything, though, from the sports to being the team mom or whatever they needed you for, which gave you that community connection. And when you say no one knows you, they probably knew you at the very local level. And if not, then people just brand better. But you just took that same model and threw yourself into the national level to make bigger change, and just took your skills and said, whatever I can help you do, I will do on a big scale. So that model is the model of success that you built from a small thing of career to now where you are at a national scale.
I love that you identified that, Jeff, because, you know, I was watching a friend of mine who went from her thing is from housewife to hustler, right? But again, she was in the PTA. She got involved. She was there with his kids. She was an opera singer. And actually, she's going to be someone I'm going to bring on the show. So I'm not going to give away all her goods. But like, it's that truth, that skill set. So anyone who's listening that thinks I'm new to the industry, or maybe I can't do this, like, you do have a gift or skill set that you have in your, you've probably applied in life in some other way. Rebecca was one who was all in. She committed to the kids' sports. She committed to being involved. And it's inspiring to know that someone can do so, not only at a local level, but then you can transition that skill set from the local level, like Jeff said, and now be a national and now even global influence. Right? You guys are now helped open in, we're all, we're at EXP, and you have helped open Puerto Rico. You have partners that are growing in Colombia. I'm not sure if you are yet in Canada, but I know that you guys are already expanding in other countries. Mexico, and you've applied some of those same skill set. Again, consistency. One thing I know you guys are really good at, just to take it back to where real estate agents can apply some of these skill sets that's applicable, right? And they've heard it over and over again, consistency. Like when we were opening up Puerto Rico, you were like every week on Zooms, meeting with global leaders, meeting with other leaders, and making sure that 30 people showed up or 300 people or 3. Consistency. So same thing, Josh, you were consistent with your growth in the meetings and how you hold, and you learned a lot of leadership skills. So let's talk about some takeaways, like, really direct takeaways, because we want to honor some of the things that they'll find in your book on consistency, things that have made you guys successful that they can maybe implement in their business. And if they were going to get involved today in some sort of organization, whether it's WCR, like we said, Inman, RE. I mean, I went to Inman and I became, I was like, I'm going to get involved here. I'm like, I'm the new kid on the block, but what do you need me? Like, what did I do? Like, so whatever organization you're looking to break into, and then also maybe a tip on who's got a book in them. Maybe they want to write. Where do they even start? So take us there.
Josh, go ahead. You go ahead. You got the 5 C's you've talked about, I think, that are really important. Just break down a little bit about that.
Well, we pray. Honestly, our core values, we run them through 5 C's that we call the 5 C's. One of them is the first one is commitment. You have to be all in, committed to each other, committed to the vision, and just understanding that there's a commitment that we all have to be. You have to be following in order for you to get to where you want to go. And I know that these commitments are not easy. We all fail in some commitments, but it's okay. I always believe in that through failures, we all grow, If you don't fail, that means you're not stretching yourself enough.
You're not trying, you're not taking risks.
You're not taking risks at all, So, and I tell you, this is something that I've learned from Veronica a lot. And
I think committed that I'm sorry, I cut you off there, but that no matter what happens, we're still going to stick it and write it out. Stick it out together, write it out together. We're deeply committed no matter what happens. We're not going to throw in the towel and give up,
And the second one is a cooperation. When you're committed, you have to cooperate. You have to be able to cooperate with the plan, with the vision. You have to trust the process. And I think that the majority of the time, Jeff and Veronica, I think that's the problem where people fail. They're afraid once something happens, they're afraid to continue moving forward. I mean, in the book, we speak a lot about our hardest, our darkest times. It was not easy to speak about it, but we had to, because how anyone was going to relate to us if we weren't really being so transparent about what we've gone through.
Which brings us to communication. So, deeply communicating on all levels, whether in business and personal. If you cannot communicate with each other, which I've seen some people, like I have an issue with that term, stay in your lane. And I get it because each one of us have to have defined roles, and we have to allow each other to work in those capacities, right? So I get that, but it can't be that this is what I do, don't ask me what I'm doing. We have to be able to hold each other accountable, because Absolutely. If we're a team and we're going to grow, we cannot have that, don't ask me what I'm doing, I've got this. That's not a team. That's not a team.
It's not. I love that. I love this one. And I think this is one of the major ones that people struggle with is compromise. You have to be able to compromise. You have to be able to give in and understand your partners, understand your team, your leaders, understand your some of your agents, some of your team members. I think that one of the things that I was very intrigued about was when I read Leadership Gold by John Maxwell. And he stated, I mean, this message that he wrote there will forever be embedded in my heart, because he said when he set up a board meeting every single week, his secretary would sit next to him every single time taking notes. And there was a time that he went around the room and he asked everyone, did they have a question? And his secretary looked back at him and said, John, you're not hearing anyone.
Ouch.
Basically, she was telling him, you want my honest opinion? You're the only one speaking here. You're not hearing any one of your board members. So how do you expect for them to say something back if you're the only one speaking? You got to hear them out. You got to hear everyone out, because how can you understand what the problem is or any situation if you're not really understanding why this occurred and how we can resolve it together?
And so sometimes when you're super driven and you have these big visions and big dreams and big goals, you are driven only on your own idea and you want everyone else to fall in line. And, sometimes you got to hear other people out, like he said, but also compromise, because you might not have the best idea, or maybe somebody has something to add to that can make it even better. We have to hear each other out, and sometimes maybe even make a little change on what we were thinking we wanted to do. And in the end, if this keeps the peace, right? Because if we're not hearing each other out, then there's going to be that one person that taps out and says, what am I even here for? Right? They're not listening.
And I love that the Veronica touched on it earlier in the conversation when she said about the visionary person. Yes, I'm a visionary person, but I also can take a step back. She read my culture text, by the way. Culture index. And it's funny because that really resembles who I really am. Even though I'm a visionary person, but I can take a step back, Jeff, and hear people out and hear everyone out.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah. So what's the fifth C?
Which is the fifth C?
C. I got 4. Give me the fifth one.
Last one is community. And it's interesting because having written the book and having had our podcast, we have found a community of other couples that are working together in real estate. And I don't know that we had thought through what that would look like moving forward, but what we found were couples who are going through similar issues, or maybe even just struggling a little bit. And who do you go to? Because when you're in a committed relationship, you can't just talk to anybody. I mean, yes, you could talk to a coach and maybe a therapist, but it's so nice to have a community of agents who are already going through the same thing and that understand you. And so, we found that we're struggling with a lot of the same issues, right? I don't have the answers for everything, but we support each other, right? And so many of us struggle with the balance of work and personal life and cutting it off at the end of the day. And I think we all know the answers to that. And the truth is, we just have to build that habit and that discipline and stick to it, just like a diet. Everybody knows how to diet, right? Everybody knows how to stay committed to a workout regimen, but we don't really want to do it, right? And we just have to be committed to do it, because if your relationship is important to you, just as important as your business is, your relationship has to be just equally as important. So we have to cut out that time to be with each other. So I think it's important to do culture indexes, because I think they say a lot about what our strengths and weaknesses are. Josh and I kind of play off of each other's strengths. And I think that's what has been like our power, right? Our superpower together is using those strengths to its advantages. And so if we're not allowing someone to use their strengths, then you're missing half of the bonus here about being a couple working together. And I think it's important to do also the test for the 5 love languages and know that we are speaking the same love language to each other, and that we're feeling that in our lives on a daily basis. So what's important to me to make me feel loved might not be the same for him. And so we have to be speaking. If I'm speaking French and he's speaking Italian, we're just never really going to make this happen, right?
Yeah. I think the third thing I would say is, if you are going to surround yourself with a community that's going to be very honest and transparent with yourself. You know what? Because a lot of times you want that, that elevates you and really tell you exactly how they feel, because that's important, Jeff. I think that's one of the biggest failures is, if you're going to surround yourself with community, surround yourself with someone that's going to tell you the truth. They're going to support you, but they're also going to tell you the truth.
That's right.
And that's what you want. I think that, not someone that's going to say, yeah, and that's it. You want someone that really, one of those.
No, we have enough of that in our lives. We have way more than that.
Talked about coaching, and it's funny because one of the first coaches that I talked about this not too long ago. One of the first coaches that I hired, the first thing we did was we need help because we obviously were working together. We didn't know who was the boss of what, who was the boss of this. And as we wrap up, I wanted to talk. It's funny. I said, we need operational coaching and we need all this. And then he said, we need an executive board for us too. It was husband and wife, Tony and I. In other words, we made a decision.
Personal referee.
We needed pretty much. We needed a board of director to be like, all right, you make the decision in sales. He makes the decision in operations. But if you guys can't agree, then we have to have an executive board be the one to help us. That was our first phase. And this was like 9 years ago. I'm not saying that that's what we need now because we kind of learned and evolved. But we lacked the leadership training at the time. And we decided to embark on this journey as husband and wife to work together. And it was a struggle for us. It really was, but we got over it. But it was, if I would have had those 5 C's and we would have truly really been, able to cooperate and communicate better, I think we would have made, and I'm very proud of what we've accomplished, but this is gold, the 5 C's that you guys just gave: commitment, committed, cooperative, communication, compromise, and community. I think anybody can apply that in their business. I really appreciate it. I really want people to go out there and get the book because I think it'd be great. I think they can get the book at the domain is marriedinrealestate.com.
That's right.
Marriedinrealestate.com.
You can download it there. And the other thing I was going to say before Jeff wraps this up is, culture index, you mentioned it, Jeff. I don't know if we feel really cool and feel generous, and maybe we put out a RELaunch Live a link for them to where they can download the link. And if they end up doing it, it'll go to you and me, and we can help them interpret what culture index means to them. And we can set up something like that. I get super inspired about things like that. And it's really helped a lot of people that I work with. So I'm down with that. If you are, Jeff,
I'm totally down with it. Cause I used to be years ago a non-believer in any of the, the disc profiles and all this other stuff because I was stuck in my own ego. And, once we started to understand it and understand how people are different and the matchmaking of it it's a home run. So I would love to
honor people more. You honor who they are and you realize they're not doing this on purpose. Maybe there's just a lack of awareness and, but also honor who they are and elevate their strengths and don't judge them for the areas that maybe they're not as similar as you are. And I'm still on that journey of self-discovery myself. And I know when I need to tone it down. I know I need to crank it up. I know when I need to adjust. And it's really interesting. So I think we're going to have a culture index segment. How about that?
I think that's exciting.
That's a really good one. That's another whole.
I actually would love that because I tell you, I truly believe that this culture index really helped me understand who I really am,
Yeah.
And
we even culture index our kids. Their kids,
even the kids. Yeah. It's pretty cool because
the boyfriend. Sorry. And make sure they're aligned, right?
You profile them all. If they walk in the door, you're dating my daughter.
Well, the thing is, you don't say that, oh, I'm this because of this. It doesn't give you a pass or an excuse. And we'll talk more about that when we have that episode. Yeah. But it just makes you aware. It makes you aware why you are wired a certain way, and it just works out. But all right, Jeff. So
one more thing, because I think it's also working to your strengths and making sure if you're failing at something and maybe you're pushing yourself to do something you weren't designed to do, find what it is that you're more powerful at and put people in place to do those things that you're not as great in. And so I think if we think of it in that sense, then we're going to grow from that because we can't all be good at everything, right? And so let's play to our strengths. And that's what I love about it. I love that. And I just started Rocket Fuel last night and I was floored by it. So I want to dive deeper into it.
Yeah. Rocket Fuel make you say wait, but I'm the problem.
That's right. Right in the mirror.
Oh, that's me. Anyway, that's a whole nother segment we can do, which I know we're just going to continue. This is episode 9 and it just keeps on getting better. Jeff, what do you got for us?
I have so many questions that I can go here, but I'm going to have to hold them for another time. Because I work with my wife too on some things and not others, so I'm going to have to hold it. So we're going to have you guys back. But also I'm just going to grab the book too at the same time. So thank you guys for spending your time with us. Hopefully we get some more people that are going to pay attention to drive people closer together versus further apart. So I want to wrap this up saying thank you. Veronica, thank you as always too. So listen, if you want to follow us, for those watching, it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, and all the other Instagram platforms that we're on. It's a wrap for this one. We'll see you guys very soon.
Don't forget to get the book, marriedinrealestate.com.
Marriedinrealestate.com.
We'll see you guys back soon on RELaunch Live, where you get to rethink, reimagine, and be re-inspired. See you guys soon.
Ciao. See ya.
You've been listening to the RELaunch Live podcast, helping you rethink, reimagine, and be re-inspired in your life and business. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. Find the show on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, and YouTube. See you next